So today we're going to do a different kind of class in a way. I mean, maybe it won't seem different to you. It's different to me. And but always through the course of the semester, people ask me. Multiracial students are often asking me about when are we going to do a class about being multiracial and as I think about it, and I was just at this conference this past weekend on Saturday. We were talking about the interstices, the place where things interconnect and intersect and overlap, and we were talking about the interstices between race and gender, and I was thinking, well, we can do an entire class on living in between. Like in between categories. And so what I want to do is have it be what it's going to be today is just an open class and listening to you or some of you talk about living in between the categories, in between the ends, somewhere on the spectrum that where you're not one thing and you're not the other. And in fact, really, you're a third in a way. And so what happens, well, you could see it lots of different ways. I don't know, but we can discover that, right? Like some people can see, if you're like, say, multiracial, you could see yourself as, let's just say, two different groups. Like maybe your father's Irish and you're white Irish and your mother is Korean. And, you sort of live kind of half in Irish culture and half in Korean culture, right? Or you can see yourself as sort of split down the middle, like 50-50. Or, you could see yourself any mix of those, or simply a third, right? A new sort of amalgamation of neither Irish nor Korean, but something else entirely. And there are lots of ways to look at it, and people who live in between the categories have lots of ways in which they see it and they experience it. And so what I want to do is just invite different people down to have a conversation and talk a little bit about what your experiences are. And so these are just some of the categories that I'm thinking. So when I say it's pansexual, not bisexual, because we're just looking at two even, right? It's like living in between. Like, what's it mean? What's it like? What's your experience? Multiracial, those of you who have dual citizenship, right? I mean, you live in between different countries. Or maybe a third culture person. Do you know what a third culture person is? Like, so somebody who is, maybe you grew up for most of your life not in the culture of your birth or the culture of your family. So a lot of people whose parents are in the military become third culture kids because they travel around. If their parents travel around in lots of different bases in other countries, or maybe just for business or for work or something, one of their parents just takes them overseas for a long time. And so I know there are probably a couple of you who are coming here to Penn State from another country, but in fact you're where you've lived most of your life, but you're actually Americans. And so this would be like a third culture idea. Or, just multilingual. Like, how is that? Like, what is it? And so the questions that I want to ask, so when you come down to the front to talk about your experiences, these are some of the questions that I think it'd be really cool to hear you talk about, right? What are just some things that the rest of us don't really know or wouldn't know or don't understand? And what would you like us to know? Like, what do you think it'd be like really cool if people saw it? What's some of the really interesting and unique pieces of it? And what are some of the places in which maybe there's a struggle, right? Like, whatever the struggle is. I mean, just some kind of struggle, like in trying to really sort of get your sense of self. And living in between, right? So you could have families. So we didn't do the religion piece. So it could be, I don't know. You grew up in a family with multiple sort of religious perspectives, and you're sort of right in the middle of it, and it really matters. And what are some of the things that maybe you other people don't understand, and you wouldn't understand if you weren't multiracial, right? Or you wouldn't understand about sexuality and gender if you weren't bisexual or if you weren't pansexual, let's say. Just what are some of the things? What are some of the ways in which you experience stuff? So, you can, as you come up, we'll just go as deep or wherever you want to go. It doesn't matter. And again, we can go. I know we touched on this issue earlier in the semester, but we can just kind of see where it goes. We touched on the issue of adoption outside of different cultures and stuff, right? So, I think it would be really good to start. Well, we can start anywhere. It doesn't really matter, but. Wait, hang on a second. I have to do something now. Is yellow working? Actually, I'll just talk to green. All right, so listen. If you're watching on the stream, here's what you need to know about this room right now. Three things. A, we have this week and next week before we get a break. It's been a really, really long semester, and people are really burned out. That's just how it operates. So we're working with the energy that's in the room. This is a really chilled class today. We're going to go really easy. 2, it's really, really hot in here. So it sucked the energy and the oxygen out of the class. And 3, this is just one of these, I think we're going to have a cool conversation, but I'm not going to be jumping around the room. I'll do that Thursday, maybe, right? Okay. So, who wants to start? Who wants to start? It might be really good to start with someone who's multiracial or biracial or something, because I think that's an issue where, dude, you want to start? Dude, why are you wearing a half? It's so hot in here. You got a scarf on?
It's really cold outside.
It is cold outside. All right, man. You can. Well, I'll leave the table here.
I'm going to keep the hat on because if I took it off, my hair would look terrible.
Keep it on. Yeah. What's your name?
Tyler.
Tyler. So what's your?
So I'm a mixed race, part white, part Native American. More specifically, Chippewa. And my walk with that has been interesting. I guess one thing that's, for a lot of American history, Native Americans and the European settlers and eventually the whites of the United States were often at odds with each other. You have a lot of the wars.
Yeah.
The wars out west during Manifest Destiny and the spread east, westward, excuse me. And so.
No, hang on. Let me ask a specific question.
Okay.
Were you going somewhere in particular?
I just started talking.
All right. Okay, good. Then let me direct you.
All right.
So what is it about being part Native American that you find yourself coming back to throughout your life that people don't see or understand? People around you.
Most of the people that I talk to, when they think of a Native American, they usually think of someone with color.
Right.
And, so I have had, when I say that I'm multiracial, I have had people kind of give me a funny look first time around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they're not expecting to see you.
Yeah.
Because you look like just any other white guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how is that? How is it after you start talking about it a little bit? How is it for you?
I don't know. I do find it kind of fun sometimes. Because I do actually have an Indian card, kind of a this little, it looks kind of like a credit card or like an ID or something.
Yeah.
And it works as proof that I'm a member of the tribe. So every once in a while I get to talk I get to talk to people about it, and they'll be like, "No," and so then I get to pull out my wallet and go, "Hey, look at this."
Here's my card. So what are some of the things that are that you struggle with? Or to what degree? Yeah, what are some things you struggle with?
Well, definitely one thing that was really brought to light recently, actually, is that even after going through a lot of research on the internet, I still wasn't able to find very, very good information on the history of the term Redskins. I found and tried to verify one explanation that I bought into. And then when we had, what was her name?
DJ and Anna.
Yeah, DJ and Anna. When we had those two come up, and they actually said, they said where it actually originated. I'm like, whoa, I was so wrong. And it was kind of, I'll be honest, it was kind of depressing because I kind of got to realize what it's like to be Native American sometimes, just being so marginalized that you can't even find correct information about your ancestry and stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the things that it is, so it's a story that if you don't talk with people who are Native American, it's a story that African Americans or people of African ancestry in the Americas, it's a story that's often told in the black community that we don't, we don't know where our ancestors are from, but it's also a story that's very much part of the Native American community.
Yeah.
Dude, all right, man. Thanks, Doug. Thanks. All right. Yo, who else? Who wants to... Bro. All right. So what's your name?
Ali.
Ali?
Yeah, Ali.
Where are you from?
So my father's from Kuwait and my mother is from Ohio.
From Ohio?
Yeah.
Where in Ohio?
It's a very small town called Bridgeport. It's like on the border of West Virginia, near Wheeling.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So is your father Muslim?
Yeah.
And your mother?
I'd say she's like in between, like Christian and Muslim. Like she's read both books.
Wait, is she in between because she can't decide? Or
No,
she
it's
just...
not like I don't know, because like it's hard for like, if you grow up one thing and then just to like change. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's cool about being Kuwaiti Ohioan?
I don't know. I actually I identify more with like my Arab side.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So the Kuwaiti side.
Yeah.
How is that? How'd you come to identify more with your Kuwaiti side?
Okay. So I was born in Pittsburgh, and then I only lived in America till I was 9 years old, and then I moved to Dubai. And I lived in Dubai till I came to Penn State last year. So I lived on that part of the world. So I grew up like with that culture. So I just identify more with that, and I feel like I'm closer to that side of my family.
So you came of age
Yeah.
going to what would be here junior high school and high school
Yeah.
in Dubai.
Yeah.
And what kind of schools did you go to in Dubai?
I went to an international school.
International school. So you're meeting all sorts of international kids.
Yeah.
And how's your Arabic?
I started learning Arabic when I was 9, so I'm not perfect, but like I'm fluent.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you know all the important swear words and stuff?
Yes.
All right. So your dad didn't speak Arabic with you when you were...
No, not really. Yeah, not really.
So what are some of the kind of more, what do you struggle with? What kinds of things do you struggle with?
I'd say the only thing was learning Arabic, because I started learning it at such a older age, so it was much harder to learn. Yeah.
Is it so? What's cool about being an Ohio and Kuwaiti Arab American? Because you're Arab American,
Yeah.
American Arab.
Yeah. I have 2 passports, and I speak 2 languages, and I just experienced the world much more than a lot of people have. Yeah.
Like what? What do you like? What would you recommend for people in your?
To travel. I've been to like 30 countries, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been to the? Have you been to the top of the Burj Khalifa?
Yeah.
It's cool, right?
It's all right.
Yeah, dude, come on, man. It's yeah. All right, I got you. All right, cool, man. What was the coolest thing about being in? What's I got it. I'm gonna ask this question. What's like one thing about being you that other people don't understand? Do you think people don't understand? Somebody who's like you that people don't understand.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Cool, man. Maybe there's nothing. Yeah. Yo, very cool. All right, man. Dude, thanks. Appreciate it. I wouldn't, by the way, and it's kind of cool, like, I wouldn't look at you and see that you're Kuwaiti American, right? So that's kind of cool. Dude. ¿Qué pasa, hombre?
¿Todo bien?
Muy bien. ¿Y tu nombre?
Leonardo.
Leonardo. ¿De dónde eres?
Bueno, it's Spanish and English.
Where are you from?
What, Spanish? English? English?
Ah, do it in English.
So I'm Italian. My whole family, both my dad and my mom are from Italy. I was born in Venezuela. After 8 years, I moved to Panama, where I lived almost all my life. Before I moved to China, and then I came here.
So you came here from China.
Yeah,
How long were you in China?
for like a year, couple months.
Wait, so who's moving around? Your mom or your dad?
Myself.
Yeah, you went to China on your own
Yeah.
before you came here. It's like a gap year.
No, so when you graduate from high school in Panama, you actually get from November until August to actually come here. So I took that kind of like free time I got to just learn about a new culture and a new language.
So you are this Hispanic Italian guy, right? You're Italian, but but there are people in this class who would be considered Latinos or Hispanics. How many people consider themselves to be Hispanic, but they
They're
don't?
all sitting right there.
But they don't speak Spanish, and they don't speak Spanish, okay, or have never been to Latin America. How much? So, but you'd be considered Hispanic, right? Okay, so this guy so you're Italian,
Yeah.
but you're like totally Hispanic. I mean, Venezuela and Panama.
Basically. Yeah, basically.
And you speak Spanish fluently.
Yeah.
Y Italiano?
Parliamo l'italiano, fa niente.
Okay. And did you learn some Chinese when you were?
我会说中文，没问题。
Yeah. Awesome. What's the coolest thing you did in China, by the way?
The coolest thing I
Wait,
did in
hang
China.
on a second. Say that. What did he say, bro?
我会说中文，对吧？表示到我会说中文。
Wait, hang on a second. Hold on. We're going to test your Chinese here. Alex. How is his Chinese? Wait. Ask him, say, how is my Chinese?
我的中文怎么样？很好，很好，对吧？谢谢。
Alex is really shy, by the way. You don't have to be shy, man. Speak in Chinese to him. I want to see if he understands. Speak in Mandarin.
容易吧？
Say anything, bro. You are so shy. Do you know how to say you are so shy?
Might actually forgot that.
Okay.
是男性吗？
Alex, say, hang on. Say this. Dude, you are so shy.
干嘛你啊？
All right, hang
Show
on a
what?
second. Dude, just. Say it loud.
你今天怎么样？
什么？
你今天怎么样？
我今天很好，天气不好。
How is Chinese? Is it good? All right, dude. You passed the Alex test. All right. So listen, man. What is like something that for somebody who's lived your life that people don't understand? Do you think people don't understand? Like here you are sitting up here,
Yeah.
people are looking at you. What do they probably not understand about you?
That I feel like it's really interesting that I can basically, when I meet someone that it's not from the places I've lived, I basically compare their personalities, compare the way they kind of like interact with people, and it gives me an idea how to like learn to interact with that people. I think that's really like a lot of like something that a lot of people don't see. That it's really important for me to like kind of like that. I think it's really important for a lot of people to go and travel and go actually see what is people like in other places. Because the way you talk to a Chinese person is not exactly the way you talk to an American person or to a Latino person.
Okay,
And the
so
way, yeah.
Okay. No, go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, no. So basically, the way everything, even I do business, like my major is business. So the way even you do business is totally different. The way you will do business in China, you'll go and have a dinner with someone and make business. Rather in America, you'll go to their office, or maybe in Latin America, you go to a bar. You know what I mean? And there's so many different perspectives that you gotta know. You cannot just know the language. You actually should like understand the culture in order to interact with people.
Yeah, that's like my experience in the Arab world is you get down to business like on the third or fourth meeting that you have with someone. You have coffee and tea, and then later you get to it. So what did you learn about, here's my last question for you. What did you learn about yourself and your experience of the world being in China?
Actually, I think the most important thing I learned is that I learn from people. And it's something that I have come to realize right after I came to US, that I just, if I want to know about someone's culture, I won't just go and read a book or just go online. I'll just straight up go to someone and ask them, what's your culture like? What do you like to do? And that's primarily how I got to learn the Chinese culture. And that's how I got to learn most of the American culture. There's some stuff I have no clue what you guys are doing and I do not understand, but I'm, working on it.
You'll pick it up, man. Like how to do the wave at the football game or something.
Yeah.
What year are you?
I'm a sophomore.
All right, dude. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, see me after. I have a question for you, bro. See me right after class. Hey, hang on one second, bro. I want somebody else who hasn't been down here. We definitely want to talk to someone who identifies as pansexual or bisexual too, by the way, at some point. So, like someone, I just want to put that out there because I think that's really valuable. How about someone else who hasn't, someone who identifies as multiracial as well, who hasn't been? Who wants to come down? Dude, you're on, man. It's all men. What's with it's all men now? Yeah. All right, go for it, dude.
Oh my goodness, it's Gabriel.
Go for it. What's your name?
Gabriel.
Gabriel.
Yeah.
So what's your background?
So I'm Portuguese and American. I was born in Pennsylvania, lived in New York till like 5th grade. Then I moved to Portugal and came back for my senior year of high school.
Came back here?
Yeah.
And how was it moving to Portugal?
Kind of hard, honestly, because I grew up here and I have a younger sister and she moved at the same time. And she caught more of the Portuguese culture, and I definitely caught more of the American culture. So I always felt like an outsider there.
Meaning, and so like, in what way? Give me an example of you being an outsider. Like just something you experienced or didn't experience or something.
I was always viewed as the American dude.
Always as the American?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like here when people come here from another culture, no matter what, they're always considered like the foreigner person.
Yeah,
right?
and that was always me. I always ended up identifying as that, because if I came here, I was the Portuguese dude.
So when you came back to the U.S. in
Yeah.
your senior year,
Yeah.
you were seen as the Portuguese kid?
Yeah, I was called Portugal. I had people calling me Portugal.
Portugal?
Yeah.
So what's your home then? Like who are you then?
I think I'm more American, but
What do you think? What makes you more American, do you think? Besides wearing your hat backwards.
I think I feel more at home here than I do there.
Yeah, how so? What leads you to feel more at home here?
The culture ends up being more open to certain things. And it's just more, I don't know, sometimes I just feel more at home. I think it's more because I grew up here. My sister moved back this year. Like, I came back with my dad, and she stayed there, and she's going through her junior year of high school here, and she's having the same experience, but it switched.
Right, so you had like these formative years of you going through, say, fifth grade, right?
Yeah.
Here, and like it's really grounding. Like people don't understand. Like if you can imagine what it would be when you're 10 years old to leave everything that you know and what you are and the language and the culture and all the subtle things about culture, and then moving beyond that and going somewhere else and what that would be. It's really deep, but it changes you, right? So how are you different here? Like how when you sit in a class or wherever you are, do you feel different than other people around you?
Well, I feel less different here, honestly, than I did over there. And I think it's just the way people talk to me and to just interact with me. Because here it's much more like normal to find someone from like Kuwait, from Venezuela, wherever, and it's like routine. Oh, you're international, whatever, and then you move past it. But I wasn't in an international school there. I was in public school and private school.
Oh yeah, that's intense.
So I was the one international.
So you were in.
Yeah.
Where were you in Portugal?
Porto?
In Porto?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was in Porto. Yeah, very cool.
It's a nice city.
Dude, awesome city, man. I have stories from Porto. Hey, cool. Dude, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Hey, somebody, someone who's multiracial. I really want to hear someone who's like has parents that are really from different ancestry groups, multi-ancestry. And a woman. Wow, we got both. All right. Just keep telling me what to say, Kai. Yeah, what's up?
How are you?
I'm rocking, man. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
So tell us again
Okay, so my mom's from Denmark, born and raised up until her 20s, and my dad's from the United States.
From the United States.
And I was adopted from China.
And you're adopted from China.
Yes.
And so you're living in between all these worlds, right?
Yeah. And I have dual citizenship in Denmark, so that's pretty cool too.
Denmark and here. How often do you go back there?
When I was younger, I think I went back a lot more than I do now. I haven't been back since 7th grade.
So do you feel less? Okay, so your father's American, white American.
Yeah.
So they're both white. You're adopted. Do you feel more? What are you adopted as an American child, or are you adopted in the U.S. or in Denmark?
So I was adopted from China. So my parents flew to China, and then I came back to the States.
To the States.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. All right, man. So do you feel more? Do you feel like when let's say you're in Denmark versus in the United States, where do you feel most like kind of just in the middle? Like, I don't know, just grounded. Can you answer that question at all?
That question is kind of confusing. Can you reword it?
Yeah,
Is
like,
there, a
okay,
different way
so
to word
I'm
it?
imagining you as, okay, being adopted
Yeah.
with white parents. So you're in the middle of this all the time,
Yeah.
right? These different worlds. How is that for you, being in the different worlds?
I actually think it's kind of cool for like Christmas. We celebrate Christmas on like the 25th, and in Denmark it's on the 24th. So things like that. I celebrate it on both days. Like we'll have a really, really big Christmas dinner on the 24th, and then we'll open presents. And then on the like some presents or one present, because we do celebrate the majority of it on Christmas, opening all our presents and like sitting around a tree. But I think that's cool. And we always have like an Advent candle. So
Yep.
each day we burn it down. And then we have like the little chocolate calendars, which I don't think a lot of Americans do.
So your parents are both Christians,
Yeah.
and you're Christian as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And so how is it, so the interstices, right? Living in between worlds. So you're also in between these worlds. To what degree do you feel just being of Chinese ancestry, just genetically speaking, right? Because
Yeah.
people see you.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, she's Asian. I
Yeah,
feel
so
like,
what happens? What's that like? Like, how is that for you?
well, I mean, like I grew up in a really small town, so like everybody knows that I grew up white. I'm just kind of like that. But here, I don't know. I feel like some people may think that I have like Asian parents or something like that, but I come off as really like white.
So how often do you talk about it? Like being in the middle of this?
Not, sometimes, not too often.
And cool. And do you feel really grounded?
Yeah, like I'm good where I am. You know, I like living into having a bunch of different backgrounds because the funny thing is my sister's Vietnamese.
Yeah.
So she experiences kind of the same thing. So we kind of have that same, we're adopted from Asia. We're both have white parents. We kind of
Yeah.
can relate to each other like that. And we're also both females. So it's not like I have a brother who's also adopted. So we connect really well.
But totally different countries.
Yeah,
you know
totally
what I mean?
different countries, which
Yeah.
is cool too. And some people, I think it's funny. Some people are like, "Oh, you guys look so much alike," and then other people's like, "No, you don't."
Yeah, totally.
And to me, I'm
different.
like, "No, I don't look anything like her."
Yeah. That goes back to that class that we did when I had
Yeah.
people on faces. Yo, very cool. All right, man. Any hidden struggles?
I think I struggled more when I was in elementary school because I was the only Asian kid. So sometimes people would pick on me. But like now, I'm really comfortable with stuff and like myself. I know in like high school, I'd wear a lot of makeup just to, like feel better. Everybody was wearing makeup, so I tried to do the same thing. And like I also have these Asian eyes that not a lot of people had. But like now, I'm really confident with who I am and like what I look like.
So what's the coolest thing about being you, adopted from another country that nobody else would understand, that most other people wouldn't understand?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
The coolest thing about being me, I think it's that I have family. Like my entire mom's side of the family is in Denmark, and like my grandfather's actually coming in on the 23rd, and he's spending that till like the 29th of December with us, and spending the entire Christmas season. So I think that's really cool because that gives like the Danish aspect
Yeah.
like just closer. And I know that like we do other things during Christmas, like we like go around the tree, sing like Danish songs because that's kind of like a Danish tradition.
Yeah.
There's other things like that that I think are cool that aren't necessarily from like me being Asian, but I definitely like connect more with being like Danish in a sense
Yeah.
because my mom's from there. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very cool. All right, man. Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. Wait, bro, hang on one second. Hang on. So, somebody else who's biracial, man. Wait, hang on. Someone who hasn't been up yet. Dude. You haven't been up here, right? All right, man.
All right, so this is kind of a mouthful. So for my mom's side, my mom is mestizo and half black, and my dad is Native American and half white. So I came here when I was around 4 or 5 for elementary school. And so I speak Spanish. I don't speak Quiche, which is the Mayan language.
Wait, you do speak Spanish? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to consider myself fluent. It's starting to go downhill, I'll say that. But for the most part, I understand complete Spanish, but I'll struggle on certain words.
Dude, where were you born?
Guatemala.
In Guatemala? By the way, you so have a Guatemalan nose, man. Yeah, totally. Yeah. You can we show the class?
Oh, no.
Just here, turn to the side. Look at it means you have an awesome nose, man.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, if you didn't tell me, I mean, I would say you're in India, right? That's your Indian side. So go ahead, sit down again. So so you learned Spanish from your mom?
Yeah, from my mom.
Uh-huh. And your
So, yeah, it was actually my first language.
It's your first language?
Yeah.
Wait, but no, she didn't. You don't speak any indigenous languages? Because there are like
No.
60 languages.
So my
in
mom
Guatemala.
she knows some Quiche, which I was saying is
Uh-huh.
what she spoke for a bit, like, and her grandparents taught her, but she really even forgot most of that, so she never taught that to me.
Okay, so people see you. So how is it being you? Like, I'm looking at you. Like, how is it? Like, what are some of the things that you experience that other people don't?
So the main reason why I wanted to come up here is because, so when I was younger, back in like middle school, high school, my mom would always ask me like, are you proud of your heritage? And I would always say, yeah, of course I am. Like, I'm so happy that this is my background. And she would say like, do you not get looks in stores? Do you not think people are like following you around thinking you're like doing something wrong? And I'd obviously say no, and I realized because like for the most part, for like the untrained eye, like I look pretty much white. So like I'd always say, yeah, I'm very proud of it because like I don't have those per se negative side effects
Yeah.
that other people might like treat me as. So I thought that was an interesting thing.
And you, what's like one of the coolest things about being you?
I tricked a bunch of people about a calendar that didn't exist.
Yeah? Oh, yeah? Oh,
That
man.
have created a big scare, I guess.
The Mayan calendar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's probably my most proud part.
What's one of the things that you struggle with? Wait, are you connected to both your parents?
Yeah.
And what's one of the things you struggle with?
Probably like honestly, I really don't have too many struggles. I mean, like I said, some of my Spanish is slowly fading. So if like I go back to Guatemala, and I'll understand them completely, but there'll be certain words that I know what they are, and when they try to come out, it just won't. But that just it's kind of an annoying thing because you know it's there.
So what would you want people to know about people in Guatemala?
Guatemala is very corrupt right now.
Okay, besides that.
I don't know. Guatemala is a country that isn't Mexico. I'll say that. I still think like the biggest thing is like if you're Spanish, you're Mexican here.
Yeah.
And
So you experience that here?
yeah, I mean, if I say I'm Spanish, they'll say, "Oh, so you're Mexican?" I'll say, "So no, I'm Guatemalan." They'll say, "Oh, so you're Mexican," and that's a pretty common trend.
Yeah, I got you. That's just the common thing. Everybody just assumes that, yeah. And nobody thinks about Mexico as being part of North America, but it is. Yeah. Cool, man. Did I ask you what's like a hidden struggle that you experience?
I mean, I was saying about like the language barrier that
Got
I'll
ya.
slowly like forget stuff, but other than that, I don't think I have like anything super.
But you speak English with an American accent, you know. When did you start speaking English?
So I actually started speaking English, I think my second year in elementary school. So like I knew a few words, but yeah, like my first year in elementary school, I didn't speak any English at all.
Yeah. So you picked it up really fast, yeah. Cool. All right, dude. Yeah. Thanks, man. Killing it. Hey, so somebody, how about someone else? How about somebody who's black and white? Who's black and white? Is there nobody in here who's black and white? Seriously? Dude, are you black and white?
How you doing?
Yo, man. Okay, your name.
Miles?
Miles?
Yes.
Yeah, so what's your story? Who's white, who's black, who's what?
So my mom is like 75% white, and her parents are white and black. So
And your dad?
my dad's black, classifies as black,
Uh-huh.
but he's part Colombian and a little bit Middle Eastern.
Uh-huh.
I'm not 100% sure what.
So how do you refer to yourself?
I classify as African American.
Yeah? And why is that? How do you get to that?
That's kind of like the culture in my family is African American, so like that's kind of like what I grew up with.
Uh-huh.
Because we're not really connected to the other minorities in our family.
And you're not connected to the white side?
No, but yes, not really.
Yeah. So your mom's not really connected to her
No.
white side?
Not really.
Yeah. Because like what?
So her dad kind of like left,
Uh-huh.
so it was just my grandma. So like we're not really connected to the white side.
So do you ever think, how often, because I think about this with Obama, right? Like Obama was half white. Nobody ever calls Obama a white president, right? He's the black president. I'm like, but he's half white. He's actually he has more white than, if he did a DNA test, I'm sure he's more white than black. He might be like 52 white, 48 black, I don't know. But like, no one ever refers to him as a white president, right? So
Yes.
how often do you look in a mirror and have this idea like, whoa, I'm also really white?
A lot. My friends kind of like make fun of me that I'm like not as black as them, but
Yeah.
So,
but
like,
you look, I mean, you
yeah,
don't-
I look African
but
American.
genetically speaking, you're much more white than, genetically speaking, you are more white than your appearance would indicate.
Yes.
Because nobody could tell. Even looking at you, I'm like, nah, I don't see much white at all. But if we were to do a DNA test, it would come out, right?
Yes.
So do people, how are you when you're in a situation and people are talking about white people and it's like they're also kind of talking about you at some level?
I kind of just like back up.
Do you ever defend white people? Do you ever defend us, bro? I mean, us, like you?
I've never been in that situation though.
Oh, you don't have to be? All right, man. So what's the coolest thing about being you?
That I can like switch personalities.
Uh-huh.
Like I have a white personality and black personality.
And a Latino personality.
Eh,
What, are you in your white personality now or your black or Latino
yeah,
one?
my white personality.
What's your white personality?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is different? What makes it your white personality?
Mostly just how like I speak.
Yeah.
So like,
Oh, duh.
oh snap. Yeah,
How would you? Do you speak Spanish?
I do not.
Yeah. All right. Does your dad speak? You
He
didn't
does
learn
not.
Yeah.
My grandma does, but not as much. Not really.
All right, man. So listen, yo, who had a response when he said, "Yeah, kind of how I speak"? Who had a response to that? Yo, what's the response? Yeah. Wait. Hang on. What was your response to that? Wait. Hang on. Can you come down actually? Because I want to talk to you also. Yeah. 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 Awesome, man. I've been waiting to talk to you, so today is the day. Are you a freshman?
I am a freshman.
Where are you from?
I'm from Baltimore,
Baltimore?
Maryland.
Like the city
Yes.
or the bird? What's up, man? It's on, man. So wait, what's your name?
Amila.
Okay, so what was your response to him?
I disagree. The way you speak does not make you white or not.
Wait, hold the mic close. What do you say more about that?
I mean, Mary actually spoke on this earlier. She's from State College, and she speaks pretty proper and
Proper?
like just proper English without any like dialect or slang involved. And she was raised by white people, so they, like a lot of people think that's what makes her white, or like that's where it shows through. But I mean, I was raised by two black parents, and I speak exactly like the same way.
Yeah, but if
And-
I'm like hanging out with like my African American friends,
Right.
it's like the slang will start to like leak into my conversations.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like if I'm talking to Sam, I won't use slang around him.
But that's not where your whiteness like shows through. You know what I mean? Like,
Where
okay.
do you think whiteness shows through?
I mean, like, it's not. I don't think if it's like any like cultural things, or I don't know how, like, you know what I mean? I'm not very.
Wait, hang on. Don't say anything more.
Okay.
Bro, where's she from? Don't say. Where's she from?
I have no idea. I assume.
Go ahead, take a guess.
I don't know.
Just given how she speaks, look at her. Where do you think she's from? Look at her face. Come on, man. You should know. I knew this. I knew the answer to this when I first met her.
I have no idea.
Yeah? Where's she from? Ethiopia? Dude, nice. All right. So how do you speak when you're from Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Both your parents.
Yep.
And how do you speak when you have lots of friends who are Ethiopian?
Actually, no. Like more recently, I started having more friends that are Ethiopian, but I also grew up in the like suburbs of Baltimore, Ellicott City. So growing up, there weren't many Ethiopians in the area.
Yeah, there were.
There weren't many.
There weren't.
No, there was only in my high school, there were 2 other Ethiopians.
What
And we were
would
friends,
you
but that was
say?
it.
What would you say is the difference between the primary? I'm just going to ask you this. We're going to step off, right? Talking about in between, because here you are as this Ethiopian American. You have a U.S. passport?
Yeah.
And an Ethiopian passport?
The majority of my life, yes.
Okay, so you are this person who's also living in between these worlds, right? Because when you look at her, you weren't thinking she's African, right? You're thinking she's black, she's African American, she's something, but not African, right? Okay, so you're living in 2 worlds. How is that for you? Or how does that manifest itself?
I guess culturally, I have my Ethiopian side, the language, all of that. So there isn't that there's a very clear divide in my life where it's okay, my friends from here and everyone I know here, and then my friends from back home or my family or even friends that I have.
What's the divide? So you speak Amharic.
Yeah.
So what's the divide? Because most people don't okay, so imagine you have all these people here who really don't understand what it is to be Ethiopian. I'm going to just say Ethiopian, right? I'm not even going to say black, because most Ethiopians, if you ask your parents, and if I say, "How, so you're African American?" they probably would say, "No, we're Ethiopian."
Yeah.
Not Ethiopian American, we're Ethiopian, right?
Yeah.
So here you are. People just see you as black, and you are. No, hang on. I'm not black. I mean, on one hand, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm saying, imagine how it could be. I'm actually Ethiopian. There's a real. How is that divide? How is it to be in that, or what's it look like?
For me, I do identify as black, but I don't identify as African American. It's I definitely do specifically say I'm Ethiopian. Just because there is those cultural differences, and then on top of that just ancestry wise and things that people think I can relate on and things like that. I can relate on, I don't know, the black struggle of living in America now, but the whole ancestral history I can't relate on.
Right.
So there's that. There's times where I'm hungry and I'm only craving Ethiopian, or
Yeah. Did you bring me some?
I actually didn't, but after Thanksgiving my mom promised to make you some.
All right, listen, so here's a question. What is it about being African, being Ethiopian, but being African in the United States that he wouldn't understand?
So that one's difficult because I recently just got into an argument with another African friend, and it was more so how even other Africans perceive Ethiopians. So I just feel the whole Ethiopian experience is a little more different. So I can't really speak on African as a whole in America.
Got you.
I don't think being Ethiopian in America, anyone looks at me and says "Oh, you're Ethiopian, so you're different."
Yeah.
It's something I point out or I have to explain or something like that. So.
Okay, let me ask you, bro. So she, as being Ethiopian, what are some assumptions that you might make about her? As opposed to if she came up here and said, "I'm African American," but she didn't. She's Ethiopian American, so.
I kind of assume she's more connected with her African side compared to just African Americans.
And what does that mean?
it means she like goes more in depth in their culture,
Uh-huh.
like their food, their style, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely food, man. Have you had Ethiopian food?
I have not.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, you should.
There's a
Yeah.
good restaurant in Baltimore.
Yeah. All right, cool. Cool, man. All right, awesome. Thanks. Dude. Thanks. Awesome. Thanks. And it's just for me. Hey, before we go any further, I really it'd be really cool if someone who is, you don't have to come out, but like if someone who's bisexual or pansexual would just tell us how that is or what that is. So I just want to leave that open because, dude, do you want to talk? All right, cool.
Also, there are a lot of laptops out right now, and it'd be great
Yeah,
if
that's
these
not
could
cool, man.
kind of close, because this is what you should be paying attention to, not Canvas, because who cares about Canvas, right?
All right. So, what's your name?
I'm Caitlin.
Caitlin. All right, man. So, how do you identify?
I identify as pansexual.
Pansexual?
Yes.
What does that mean for you?
So for me, it means that I do not have a particular gender that I am like attracted to or not attracted to. So it's not like, so for most people who identify as bisexual versus pansexual, they are attracted to people who identify as female or want to identify as female, or people who identify as male or want to identify as male. But for pansexuals, it's more the people who are in that questioning in between space.
Yep.
You do not have anything against being attracted to those people. You are not like put off by their in-betweenness.
Yep.
So,
Which would probably be like most of us, really. If we
I mean-
gave ourselves, if we really just gave ourselves to it, most of us would be really pansexual, I think, personally. But who am I? I don't know. So have you dated people from?
I have. So I wanted to date more of the people that. So I knew from I think a much earlier age than some people would that I was attracted to like transgender individuals and women. I had a lot of friends that were like transitioning or wanted to transition in like middle school.
Yeah.
So they were like really questioning their identity at the ages of like almost like pre-puberty, like 10, 11, 12.
Yep.
So there was one friend who was girl to guy, Kim to Kyle, and we had like a kind of like something going on. So that was like my first like click that I was like, I am not just attracted to women, but or just men, but like they don't need to be a particular gender for there to be like more attract. It was never like a gender that I was attracted to, but it was more like just people.
It sounds also there's an energy, right? So when you're in the in between, there's a unique energy inside the in betweenness.
Yeah, there's a lot that you don't let put you off from someone.
Okay,
so like,
so tell me something you've discovered about opening yourself, like yourself, mind, heart, spirit, right?
Yeah.
To people who are in between, male, female, right? Tell me something that you've learned about life or about yourself.
I feel like American culture is really sexually repressed in like the way that we talk to each other and the way that we feel about ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of people get really uncomfortable when something that they don't want to be attractive feels attractive to them. So they like a lot of times turn off those feelings or ignore stuff like that. So they let go of a lot of relationships that they could have had or might have had had they been more open-minded.
Yep.
And I was just around a lot of those people growing up that were really open-minded, so I think I had that wonderful experience.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I hear that. I think it's really, it's really funny that so many of us live in this space where we live in the binary space, right? It's got to be male or female, and we we just make that assumption.
Yeah, I feel like people are really put off by masculine and feminine. I think a lot of people would not be as uncomfortable identifying with their gender if it was not so heavily tied to a masculine or feminine role.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever met any straight men who you felt some kind of attraction to?
Yeah, I am currently dating a straight man.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good, so you're all over the place. Rock on for you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
The one thing that is hard, though, is I don't think a lot of people look at me and see someone who is in the LGBT community.
Yeah.
Because I do look like a very feminine female.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times I've gotten the reaction that sometimes I just say I'm bisexual because it's easier than trying to explain pansexual, and you don't have to deal with the stupid joke, oh, you're attracted to pants.
Yeah,
'Cause that's
yeah.
so funny, guys.
Yeah.
But
Yo, did y'all hear that? Like, that joke's actually kind of old, so
come up with
chill
something
out.
new.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people are like, oh, well, have you actually ever been with a woman, or have you ever actually been with someone who's like not binary, or like a lot of people doubt that you are that because they think you're just doing it for like attention, or you're like
I got
confused because it's college, like it's not
Yeah.
actually who you are. And I think that's silly because it doesn't need to be who you are.
Exactly.
Either.
No, exactly.
I
No. My contention is if you're not confused, you have no idea what's going on. So, all right. Yo, thanks, man. Thanks. Awesome. Hey, is Raj, are you here, by the way? Dude, can you come down? Do you feel like coming down? You don't want to come down now? On a different day? All right, not today? All right, man. Bro. What's up, man?
So I'm Bob, and
Wait, what's your name?
Bob,
Uh-huh.
Bhav. So not Bob, it's like Bob, but like with a V at the end. So Bob.
Yeah.
And
Dude,
what
how
I
many
can,
people- you kind of look like a Bob, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I looked at you, I was
Yeah.
thinking, oh, this is Bob. Here we go.
yeah. So I came to talk about being third cultured because I'm originally an Indian, but I've lived 15 or like 14 and a half out of my 19 years outside India, and this is actually the 7th country that I'm living in my life. So yeah,
Dude,
I just
you can have
like,
a seat if you
yeah.
want. It's more comfortable. Yep. So were you born in India?
I was born in India.
Your
and
parents are Indian.
My parents are fully. So even with my parents, my dad is fully Indian. My mom's side of the family is technically Indian, but they were from the Pakistan side of undivided India. So before, when India and Pakistan were all India, my mom's side of the family was from the Pakistan area that migrated to India when the partition happened. So like there's that multicultural aspect there. But other than that, when I was 3, I moved to Australia, to Sydney. And at that point, I was in India and I was young, so I was only speaking Hindi with my parents. But I moved there, I learned English, and like I remember like as a 4 or 5-year-old just being like, you know, like the same thing that happened with my name here. I go to someone, I'm like, I'm Bob. They're like, you're Bob? I'm like, no, I'm Bob. So I remember a lot of times I used to just come home and be like, Mom, why would you name me Bob? Like, you should just name me Joe or Bob or Jack or something.
You could just
like,
change your name to Bob.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But wait, go back to third culture, right? So
Yeah.
was it confusing growing up? Like, did you always call yourself Indian?
So for me, like my parents, even though you know we've moved around a lot, they've kept a very Indian household in the family at all times. So like even when I've been living in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Dubai, like my parents have always, you know, kept speaking to me in Hindi to make sure I remember it. So that's why my Hindi is fluent. My English is good as well because obviously I lived abroad, went to international schools. But yeah, as a child, like a lot of times I was like, why would you name me this? I remember I went to a public school in Sydney in Australia, so everyone had mandatory Bible study every other day of the week, I think, Christian class, and I was raised as a Hindu from my parents, but I was like, why? Like, I wanted to stay with my friends and stay in the Bible group, so normally they would, like, people from other religions would go to the library and study, and like, oftentimes I wouldn't leave, and like, the teacher would call my mom, and she would be like, just so you know, he's in this class, and then my mom would be like, why are you learning about Christianity? And I'm like, because everyone's there, like things like these.
Dude, Jesus saves.
Yeah. So yeah, I would sneak into that class a lot. I would sneak out of the library a lot, and like you know, like
Wait, so
Australia.
that actually sounds like a really fun, cool thing.
Yeah,
So for you, growing up in the way that you did,
yeah,
you had what are like some really fun kind of experiences in that way.
definitely, yeah. And like I was the only, I think definitely in my class, in my grade, in Australia and New Zealand. So when I was like 4 years to like 8 years, I was probably the only Indian or like brown kid. So for me, you know, there was always that feeling of like, especially as a child, I was like, why am I so different to like everyone around me? But then having moved, you know, I moved from Australia to New Zealand to South Africa, you know, similar but also completely different in a way, you know, the South African culture. So I learned about a completely different part of the world there. Something that I'm really thankful for is the fact that after South Africa, when I was in grade 2, I moved back to India. Grade 3, I moved back to India for 2 years, and I think that really helped me connect. Like right now, when I go back to India, no one can tell that I've lived abroad, or like right now I live in Hong Kong.
Okay, so you live in Hong Kong now?
Yeah, I talked about Hong Kong before, if you remember that.
Yeah.
a long time
So
ago.
what is your how do they not know, like what are the cues? Like what do you do when you go back to India to blend in?
Like, because of my parents, I speak fluent Hindi, like properly, you know, the slang and stuff. So, and I speak to my grandparents in full Hindi. So when I go back there, you know, I'm just speaking proper Hindi. My parents have always, like, you know, kept that like feeling of an Indian household in my family. So I know a lot about India. You know, I'm very connected with my family.
Yeah.
So
what?
yeah, like,
Okay, here's my last question, Mom. What is so do you consider yourself? If I asked you, like, hey, if I asked you what your ancestry is,
yeah,
you would say Indian.
yeah.
But if I asked you where are you from, what would you say?
I think the answer to that is India. If I had to choose a place, more than most, it would be India. But I still don't think that's enough for me to say like I'm fully Indian because I've only lived there 4 out of my 15 years.
Yeah, like you're sort of like you're like if I say where are you from, you're sort of I'm from the planet.
Yeah, like 7 countries. You know, I've lived amongst completely white people. I've lived amongst proper like completely black people. I live amongst Asian people now. I've lived amongst brown people. So like, for me in my life, like this is why I wanted to come and talk. I've really reached a point where like when I see someone, the last thing I think about is their race. Like, you know, in terms of like who a person is.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I've also always been in an international school.
Yeah.
So like for a lot of my friends, moving to university was, you know, like if they were going abroad from Hong Kong to like the US or the UK.
Yeah.
For them, it was like, you know, big thing. They're moving out of school. For me, it was any 2 years of my life because I move after like every 2 or 3 years.
Dude,
So I think,
awesome,
that's
man.
pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, dude. Bob. Yeah, very cool. Hey, can we? I just want to go back. I just want to. Is there anything that we really didn't hit on that somebody would like to contribute? Yeah, no, Khalil, hang on one second. Yeah, behind you. Yeah. You have something? No, come on up. Yeah, no, come on up, man. Khalil, you come up. You can come up too, man. I have 2 microphones. You know, remember last class when MK was here and we were talking about, and I was talking about, look, if you really want to understand the world, if I had kids, I would demand. First off, I wouldn't have kids because I wouldn't impose that hell on anybody. But if I did, then here you take that. But if I did, how I would really insist that they learn either Mandarin or Korean. So, and you're learning both, right? So
Yes.
So he's the guy. He took my advice. So right away, he learns both. Before you even knew me, you took my advice. Anyway, okay. So what's your name?
Brenna.
What is it?
Brenna.
What's Brenna?
Yeah.
And what would you say? What's your story?
Okay. Well, my mom's a Jehovah's Witness and my dad's an atheist.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah.
And let me guess. And you walk around knocking on people's doors trying to convince them to be an atheist. No, go ahead. What's your story? What are you?
Well, I was like pretty much raised as a Jehovah's Witness like all my life, because my parents are divorced and like my mom had like pretty much almost all custody. So yeah, I went knocking on people's doors and everything until I was probably like 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you knocked on a lot of doors. Did you ever
50
convert
hours a
anybody?
month.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Yeah. Did you ever get it? Did you ever bring anybody, get anyone? to
Yeah,
come
I
up
had a
with
lot
you?
of Bible studies. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. And what are you now? Like, how do you identify?
I don't know. Like I just don't like to think about it. Like I guess atheist, but I mean I'm open to stuff, but I pretty much just I'm kind of done with the religion at this point. But yeah.
Listen, you'll come back to it. No, because you can't grow up Jehovah's Witness and not come back to it. As you mature into a young adult and adult, you come back to it. But you come back, in your case, you'll come back to God in a. I'm predicting this. I would predict that you'll come back to God in a much more mature way, yeah, and than you were, and it would be an awesome experience. Yeah. Wow. And wait, what does your mom know that you identify today as not a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, it was like, I basically got kicked out. I won't tell you why, but, yeah, so she kind of is okay with it now, I guess, because it wasn't even, like, my choice, really, so.
All right. Bro, what's your...
Funny story, I'll be about the same thing coming from a multi-religious household. My dad is Muslim and my mom is Christian. And for some people, that is just an inconceivable like combination. And so I tell people that, they're like, how does that work out? And my answer to that is they mind their business. Like,
wait, so they both worship.
Yes.
They're both faithful.
Yes.
And wait, does your dad pray 5 times a day?
Don't know if I don't see it. Don't know if he ever.
All right, but anyway.
Don't know if he ever
Wait,
did.
hang on, don't call him out, right? We don't want to do that. Okay, but however, so they both live their faith under the same roof.
Yeah, I have seen the Quran in my house.
And the Bible next to
and
the Bible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both next to the computer.
And what are you? How do you identify?
I identify as Christian.
As Christian?
Yes.
Yeah, dude, and then you're going to go to China, and you can come back Confucian or Buddhist.
Maybe.
Really mix it up, my friend. You know what I mean? So, what question do you have for her? Who is now an atheist? Former Jehovah's Witness is now an atheist.
More power to you. Live your truth. If this is what you feel like best suits you, who am I to, say you need to do this, you need to do that? Because definitely when I got growing up with a lot of people saying because I don't eat pork, and I don't eat pork because, my dad is he does not enforce his religion upon any of his children, but that was just the one thing that he was like, what you're not going to do is eat pork. And so when I would tell people that, they were like, but you're not Muslim, so why don't you just eat pork? And I don't feel like they actually understand is that they're asking me to disrespect my father. And that's just cool. Something that I'm just not going to do. So what I'm saying is that don't let anybody say you need to be this just because your parents are something, or saying that you need to identify as one or the other.
Dude, that's very cool. Hang on. We have one more question. I have one question here. And we have 1 minute, my friends. Good luck not eating pork in China, by the way.
Yeah, you break that sometimes.
They'll just pretend it's tofu, just as you're eating it with your chopsticks.
You know what? There comes to, because obviously I've had pork but you just, if you don't ask, it's chicken.
Exactly. All right, wait, hang on. One final question. What's the coolest thing about having grown up in with Jehovah's Witnesses?
Honestly, it was.
Yo, hang on. Listen to this. This is really important.
Honestly, it was like super cool. Like I know a lot of people have like really just I don't know, bad kind of connotations with Jehovah's Witnesses, but like I'll tell you this, like they're the nicest people
Awesome.
like on the entire planet.
Right,
and like it's super strict, and that's like part of why like I got kicked out and like left and everything. But like if I didn't have that as a part of my life like growing up, like I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Right.
So
Dude, awesome, man. Yeah. All right, thanks. All right, see you all.